let me start taking last comments. Alan, I again forward you Paula's question. Ambassador Carmen's very clear this is war, but Ambassador Kaju says there are rules of war. When you say that the Israeli military has attempted to say, please move, people say millions of people can't move. It's not that easy. Gaza is a narrow strip, right? That's question one.
You're correct. You're correct.
Yeah.
First of all, there are rules of war, and Israel is acting according to the rules of war very, very clearly. That's one. Secondly, as was mentioned, 500,000 people move to the south. Other can move also. There's a safe zone in the south, and we would like it to be that way. And we again call upon the international community to support them, okay? Send field hospitals, send aid. This is, we would like to see civilians who are uninvolved in a better situation. That's the second thing. And thirdly, and I think this is very interesting, that Israel is being targeted from Yemen. I don't think anyone here, including Paula, Chris, and others, and the ambassador, can say that we've done anything wrong with Yemen. And yet, this happens. In the northern border, Hezbollah is attacking unprovoked, okay? And it's okay by the international community. So I'm curious why I don't see more voices heard stop doing that. Yes, we are in war in Gaza. We have nothing to do with Yemen. And I think this is part of the hypocrisy of the international community. And I will end with that, okay? We're just saying we do not want to see any uninvolved person harmed. And it is your responsibility to make sure that Hamas is allowing the people that are not involved to go to harm safe, to go to the south, make sure that they won't get hurt, while Israel will operate in order to eliminate the threat of Hamas that slaughtered 1,400 people, including babies, children, mothers, fathers, grandparents in their own beds.
I think you raise an important question about countries such as Qatar that are both mediating for the release of hostages, but also home to Hamas, Hezbollah with the backing of Iran. Chris, I was able to go actually to the northern border of Israel and witness with my own eyes a second front in the conflict opening. To the question that Alan therefore raises, what does this have to do with anything? Why is the international community not talking about this two-front attack on Israel, backed by Iran? And in the United Kingdom, for example, it's very interesting, the politics. Even the Labour Party chief has stopped short of calling for a ceasefire. So this conflict is upending politics as we understand them everywhere in the world. Chris.
Well, first of all, I think the international community has been very clear. I cannot understand where Elon is coming from, that we don't want to see any Hezbollah attacks on Israel and vice versa. We don't want to see any escalation. And of course, that applies to rockets that the Houthis, have been sending for Yemen. I think that this is one of the reasons why we need to get to a much better situation to de-escalate, so the whole crisis doesn't spread even further into the West Bank and elsewhere. And I think it goes to the whole issue that Paula asked. I still think that where does this end? Where is the end game? In the end, whatever happens, Israel will still be living with and amongst 5-6 million Palestinians. And it is therefore, Israel's been very successful in winning these military conflicts. And of course, ultimately it will. It is a regional superpower. It has a first-class military. But it keeps on losing the political war because it doesn't realize the necessity of also reaching out to those Palestinian civilians is absolutely crucial. But when you are hitting those civilian infrastructure and you're alienating them, you're alienating also a lot of people around. So the fact that it has not been as focused, as it and targeted as it's required under international law has really significant political damage as well. And, how you are going to live with Palestinians and indeed others in the region if there is a target essentially of obliteration. And I remind you, that's the language that ministers, not Elon, who's a spokesperson, is using. They're using that sort of language. They're talking about a second Nakba. They're talking in a language that people in the region are hearing. That stirs it up too. That energizes.
That's fair.
Please.
Yeah, some of the rhetoric has certainly not been the kind of rhetoric we've heard from either Daniel Carman or Alan Lavi today. But before I give Ambassador Carman the closing comment, Ambassador Kaju, just your thoughts.
I think Alan is right. Israel has a right to live peacefully, and any action by the Hezbollah or others, Yemen, for example, has to be condemned. There's no doubt about that. But there's also a fact, and that fact is that the international community believes, and I think many in Israel believe, that the only future lies, and what India has been saying also, is through diplomacy to work out a two-state solution. Now, I have not seen, and our Israeli friends can correct me, I have not seen any alacrity being shown by the Israeli governments or by successive Israeli governments to really try to work out a two-state solution, which would then be moved towards peace in the region, peace between Israel and Palestine. At the same time, it can be argued also that the Palestinians themselves have not come forward. Instead, in Gaza, it's Hamas, which is going back to the old rhetoric of the PLO. So this is the tragedy with intractable solutions, intractable issues, which are embedded in history. That they get involved, and I'm sorry if I'm using the term again, in competitive victimhood, and the focus is on victimhood and who's right and who's wrong, and not on resolutions. That is what we have seen here.
Ambassador Carman, what is the way forward from this point?
I tend to agree with what the ambassador said. There must be a strategy. There must be an exit plan. I have not seen an exit plan either, not only you. But we are not in the chambers of those who are supposed to do it. And those who are supposed to do it are not only the Israelis. I believe that when President Biden was here and with the process, with the Americans and with other players, I believe and I hope, like you do, Ambassador, that there is a strategy being worked. It's not enough to, it won't be enough to eliminate the terrorist capabilities of Hamas, hopefully as soon as possible, but it will take a long time. It will take a long time. It could be months before it's over. It could be months before it's over. But an exit strategy is essential with other players. Let me remind you, doesn't sound like a end comment, but let me remind you that Hamas is not only the enemy of Israel. Hamas is the enemy of the Palestinian Authority. They threw them out of Gaza. They threw people out of buildings. Egypt, and I guess other countries are threatened by Hamas or what Hamas represents. And one word was not mentioned here, at least since I joined the program, and that's Iran. And I would look at
I mentioned Iran backing the Hezbollah, and I did mention that, but go ahead. Yes.
I think it's the right thing, because we might have to look at this specific conflict as part of something much bigger that has to do with maybe a war between civilizations, or between the moderates and the extremists, or you name it. I mean, we could do seminars and seminars, but we are not in the time of seminars. We are in time of war, and I must stress, first of all, first things first. One little comment to Paula. I'm sorry, I have to correct. I don't think that the cities of the West Bank have been emptied because of the settlers. The settlers' activities are a shame. I'm an Israeli, ashamed of what the settlers are doing. I think it's a scandal. I think it should be dealt with by the Israeli police and military and defense establishment. It's not emptying the cities of the West Bank, by no means.
Okay, but you don't. But you do think that what's happening is unacceptable. I was going to close, but I'm.
What some
These,
settlers,
Paula, yes, Paula, yes. Okay, go
what
ahead, Paula.
some
In
settlers are doing.
fairness, I have to allow her to respond to that. Paula, go ahead. Yes,
Yes.
Paula.
Please,
Yes.
Ambassador Carmon, you're very well known also in my country, in Italy. So I know you and I know also your stand. But please, I didn't quote any other sources that B'Tselem. So the communities that were emptied, I mean, it's B'Tselem, it's an Israeli organization that says this today and yesterday and the days before.
Okay.
We will. Hebron and Bethlehem and Nablus.
No, I said communities. I said villages. I didn't say cities.
I doubt it. I doubt it, and I could doubt Bethlehem.